Here we go. Smart Buildings video casting podcast for the week ending October 14th, 2018. This is Control Talk Now, episode 287, where we talk about all things smart building controls. And I am joined by your host and mine, the man, the myth, the legend, the one, the only. You know him as Ken Smyers, but if you're his friend, you get to call him Kenny. Kenny Smyers. Welcome to the show, Kenny.
Well, thank you very much, Eric. Always great to be here. We've got a great show, man. We have got two dynamite guests. We've got just an incredible itinerary of subjects that we're going to talk about, and it's all relevant. It's all very important, actionable, interesting items about our industry.
Well, let's stay tuned for that, and let's get through some other stuff real quick so we can hop right on that with that interview. So, first of all, Big Dog, how's the weather in Pittsburgh?
We went from having 88 degrees, 20 degrees above normal, to 40 degrees, 20 degrees below normal. It is 42 degrees here in Pittsburgh, and I'm wearing a little wintry type apparel because I'm freezing my tail off. And I don't want to put the thermostat on it because I'm like that. I don't want to put the, it's like I resist till my wife complains, then I'll turn the thermostat up.
Well, our temperatures have been fluctuating too, and I am wearing a t-shirt by a company called Psycho Bunny. And just so you guys know, Kenny and I are trying to get some additional sponsors in, so we're going to talk about our wardrobe. So we're done with that Psycho Bunny, and then Kenny's wearing his stuff. But, dude, let's do a couple of shout-outs before we get down to business.
Well, sure. It's always fun to see what's going on. The first shout-out is to Mike Liscombe. He's the Vice President of Global Market Development at Tritium, and he's very, very proud because he went through some fire and water. He says it's great to have a fresh challenge to be back in the classroom. Outstanding program from Thunderbird, and he received his executive certificate in global leadership. And I'll tell you what, it's always good to see people go back and go through the gauntlet one more time and get tested and see if you still got the medal and you can push it. So congratulations on that.
Hang on one second before you do that. Before you go to the next one, and hold that thought. Because you talk about education, and education is such a key sort of thing. So our buddy, my buddy and yours, Anthony Bronzo, the original sort of millennial. And for those of you who don't know, once a month I got two mentors. I got one that's like 70, and I got this other Anthony Bronzo I've known for years. And I think he's turned 30. But, I reach out to them once a month, find out what they're reading, what they're into, and I sort of get two different perspectives. So Anthony is, really big into augmented reality, and he started doing coding. So he was telling me the hottest thing, and I forget the name of the company, it's a French company, but they produce more coders and programmers than anybody else. And he's got accepted in their program. Okay.
Congratulations.
It's a 1 month boot camp that you have to get through. Okay. And so here's the deal with the boot camp. They give you like 6 or 7 assignments every day. They have no instructors, no teachers. But you have access to the internet. You stay in the dorms. They feed you. You stay in the dorms just like, 16, 17, 18-hour days or whatever, as long as it takes. You can access other people that are in the group. I think they do 100 at a time. And bottom line, they figure, well, you got the internet. You can figure it out. The dropout rate is like 95%. Okay. The 5% that make it through this program, they go on and they actually start teaching them stuff, but they're the most sought after programmers. But this education process about perturbation and them figuring it out apparently is the hottest thing going. So my bet is Anthony will be one of the 5% that makes it, but it is interesting how we talk about fast tracking education. And this is a very non-traditional approach, but apparently it is producing great results.
Well, it's a good thing it's free, huh?
Well, I'm not sure it's free.
Just kidding. No, it probably is. It's probably very expensive.
But they say once you make it through, the 5% that make it through, they do this once a month. They say the graduation rate once they put them in to the actual training after that is 0. And the reason being because as soon as they get through this boot camp, the Apples and the Googles and everybody are hiring them. So
Well, sure. It's probably like an IQ test. It's one of the tremendous, filtering process to find the elite, because that's not easy. All this stuff and self-learning. We will be talking about autodidactic learning, where you learn exactly what you want to know for, and the style that's presented to you. So if you want to know how to do coding, the internet lets you go to the, the various sites where the original
Right.
coders and whatever share information, through different Wikipedias or whatever. But yeah, I'm sure he's very bright. I know Anthony, and he's a very bright guy. So good luck, Anthony. I know he's up to the task.
But I wonder if that's going to be a trend that's going to catch on, because obviously we spend ton of money on education, and typically education is you get spoon-fed stuff unless you get to talk to people, and the professors challenge you, have you think are a different thing.
One of you always you have some great mentors that Marshall Thurman and whatever. And I remember some of the tennis trainers, really, really extraordinary, talented people that could take an average player and make them better just through, of course you have to spend money and pay the lessons, but the way you learn, the way people learn is you go one-on-one with yourself and your own abilities, then you do it in a group. You watch somebody else screw up, make the same mistakes that you make, and you see how they correct them and you correct them. And then there's the instructor that really gives you the Marine Sergeant thing, and no mercy. You cannot escape their 100% vigilance on everything you're doing, and they really work on you hard. So individual drills, lessons, and then group. So if you're really educational, I'm just recently visited one of the trades 449 here in Western Pennsylvania, and the hands-on aspects of doing certain things in our industry are incredible. They have the theory, they got the classroom, they got the amazing computer, lab, and then they've got the biggest monitor I've ever seen. It's 10 foot by 6 foot by 10 foot or something ridiculous, and everybody can see it. And as people are working on their programs, it's up on the board. So that's your public embarrassment if you're not making if you're making headway. They could expose yourself, and that is also a great attention getter. So if you're going to be thrown up on the board, you might pay closer attention and be a little bit more involved. You're going to listen more actively, right?
Well, so shout out to those guys for their training. What do we have else we have out?
We had some great posts that are coming back time and time again. We got the Loytech Dale class and his folks are given a whole lot of attention. The Loytech folks have done very, very well in Europe or around the world, and the North American market's opening up for them. So they've got some really neat stuff going on. We want to congratulate Peter Chimkin for 18 years at Chimkin Automation Systems. So that's a name that's very well recognized. And then we have Wesley Booth with the Seago Control Point. Siemens apparently is excited, not apparently, but they're very excited, but they've launched it. I might have missed the actual launch date, but they have a control point, the Seago Control Point, which is very well designed, or specifically designed, I guess, for small to large buildings, but the most suitable integrated management platform. So that was a post from Wesley Booth. So shout out to Siemens. Keep up the good work. We'll hear them a couple more times in the course of the day. So now we go to the posts.
Well, hang on a second, Kenny. I think why don't we do this week? Because I got the guests teed up. So, we got some great posts this week on ControlTalk. Now, just go to the website and check them out. But before we bring our guests on, I would like to mention that the main thing to pay attention on the website is the nomination ballots are out for the CTA Awards. They've been out about a week. You basically click on that. It's pretty much self-explanatory.
Right.
The one thing that, two things you need to be aware of. First of all, the nomination period is going to end the end of October on Halloween. So don't procrastinate, okay? Get your nominations in now. If you don't see a company, a product, or a person in the individual categories, there's a thing called Other on there. Mm-hmm. Just write them in on Other. It's a person, write the person's name plus the company, and we'll then add them to the nomination ballot officially, okay? So don't despair if you don't see your product, person, or company on it. Just add it using the Other thing. Do it right away. The other thing is, you can take the link to that post, you can mail it out to your network, okay? So most of the successful people, that's what they do. You get their network involved, but just copy that link to the post and at your network and encourage them to vote, because the nomination period is going to close down October 31st. So get your nominations in now. And with that, Kenny Smyers, we got some great guests this week, but let's introduce our first guest.
Love to, Eric. We have a very special guest. He's been on the show many times before, and we hope he continues to be on the show as many times after today. We have Ken St Clair, the owner-editor of Automated Buildings, and we're going to discuss many things. Primarily, we're going to talk about Ken's a world traveler. He just got back from Italy. He's got some great, exciting news to share with us there. And we're going to talk about the October education editorial and some other things. So, Ken, welcome to the show.
Welcome to the show, Ken.
Thank you very much, guys.
Well, first of all, we were watching the news, and is it true there was a riot in Italy when you and Jane tried to leave? They love you guys so much.
I'm sure there wasn't.
Well, I'm not sure. I mean, I know when I left with my two small kids, man, they all got together and applauded and said, "Go away, don't come back until your kids."
Maybe that.
Well, tell us a little about the trip. Was it business pleasure or a combination of the two?
It was a family holiday. We were meeting our daughter and son-in-law and grandson from Australia, because that's sort of halfway. So we tend to do that, as we tend to pick a country on the map that's halfway and all get together. So it turned out really well. It was a super time.
And how old's your grandson now, Ken?
Oh, how old is he? He's 8.
8. Okay, good. So no car seats. He can carry his own bag. That's the way to roll, right?
Yeah, that's right. And hike his own hikes. One of our favorite parts of Italy was we did the Cinque Terre hike, which is basically the 5 villages that are hung on a cliff up in the north. And these trails are pretty extreme. Actually, Jane did them as well. I was really proud of her. And her grandson leaped through them as well. So the trail between the towns is only about 5 kilometers, but it goes up several hundred feet and many hundred stairs. So it's
part of our group did that, and it took them 3 or 4 days to recover. So kudos to you, because that is not for the faint of heart. And wow. So were you primarily in Tuscany then, or where all did you guys go?
We started in Tuscany, and then we went up to Cinque Terre, and then we went back to Rome. And then we went to a small island called Ponza.
That's the big Italian vacation place.
Yeah, actually, it's a really interesting place for sure. Yeah. There we were really struggling because everyone spoke Italian except us.
Yeah. Well, you only need to know 2 Italian words to survive. Well, actually 3, which is vino, gelato, and pizza, and you're good to go.
Yeah, we did well on the gelato.
All right, buddy. Well, listen, lots going on. So, Kenny, let's kick it off and let's get down to some business here.
Well, the first thing we want to do is we want to thank Ken, because he's always been a big fan and supporter of the Control Trends Awards, and we have a nomination ballot that's live. It'll be live until the end of October. So we're going to help Ken, or Ken's going to help us get that disseminated to the Control Trends community and his community, so that we can get everybody that's deserving on the nomination ballot, because there's 2 phases. There's a nomination ballot phase, and then of course there's the voting phase. So we want to say thank you for that. Ken, I know you got back and you were subject to a tremendous workload. I mean, the good thing, when you travel, is you get to come back home and rest and relax, but not really, because you probably dove into a desk full and computer email full of work. So one of the things you have to help us do is get that Control Trends nomination circulated.
Yeah, well, I was pleased to get that out on Twitter and get it moving. Looking forward to how that's all going to play out. It's always exciting in the early stages just to see who gets nominated. So looking forward to that.
Yeah, just so our community knows, one of the new awards we have is the Impact Player of the Year award, and that's the individual. It could be marketing, it could be sales, it could be anything where somebody's having a big impact. And I kind of think that at some point in time, somebody's going to put your name down for that, King, because if we talk about individuals that are having a tremendous impact on our industry, I mean, your name's got to be right at the top of that.
Well, wow, hadn't thought of that, but okay.
Yeah, well, maybe get you more hardware to add, right?
Hey, another trophy doesn't hurt. Ken, listen, it's good to continue on the same vein of thought. So we have the Control Trends Awards coming up on January 13th in Atlanta, a fabulous venue called the Fox Theater. It's one of these old style, grandiose buildings with Egyptian trailings where there was a group back in the 20s, really wanted to have a fancy place to have their meetings, and they spent a lot of money. Unfortunately, the stock market crashed and these gentlemen couldn't afford it. And Fox Theater, 20th Century Fox, came out and bought all these theaters up around America. There's only 3 still left under the Fox control. There's one in St. Louis, one in Detroit, and one in Atlanta. And we're going to be at the one in Atlanta. So the segue is that we're all going to be in Atlanta Sunday, January 13th. And then come Monday, we're going to start going to the AHR Expo. and you have a great interest in that. I have a copy of your educational sessions. Let's just talk about kind of an overview of what all's going to go on after the Control Trends Awards at the AHR show.
Yeah, it's certainly been the biggest biggest program for us. The other thing of interest is this is our 20th year of doing these free education sessions. So that's kind of a feather in our cap. We started in Dallas in 2000 with our first one. We were invited by them, and we've kind of connected with AHR, and we've connected a lot of people with AHR, probably even Control Trends. I think in the early days we were bumping into each other, and we've got that all figured out now, and it works great. Kim has just been really pushing the education sessions. She's a big fan of them, and almost pushed me into making more. And I think we're up to actually 8 sessions, which is a record. We usually do about 4, so we got double the amount. We've got lots of folks helping us, which is great. One I'm particularly proud of because it's I think is what I'm all about is we've got the young guns putting on open hardware, open software, open minds session, and I'm moving into the audience to watch that one. Brad is running it, and I think the likes of George Thomas and I are going to be like the old guys in the Muppet Show up on the balcony that are always kind of just watching what's going on, and we'll kind of keep poking at these guys, but it's going to be their show. And wow, the thinking that's come out of that, and also identifying these young guns, they've risen to the challenge and have been writing some amazing articles for automated buildings. So really proud of all that. I think that's probably the most useful thing I ever do is try and bring new people into the industry and introduce them to us all.
Yeah, it's great the way you
Very,
facilitate
very
that.
Well, Ken, I don't know what you got to see. I think was it last week, Kenny? We had the gentleman on that's getting the curriculum passed in the U.S. for building controls and smart building controls and all that.
Sure, it's actually 2 weeks ago.
2 weeks ago.
So
Ken, just so you know, you're getting a little help from your U.S. brethren on that, because this gentleman is having this program being accredited in the U.S. for the kind of stuff that we're talking about doing. So
super, that's great news. Actually, there seems to be a lot of movement in that, and the education organizations and colleges, junior colleges, and they're starting to combine. It's kind of a bit of a mashup. They're starting to do the maker movement, starting to take some of the actions and how these young people learn, and are opening up the courses and leaving them less structured and just basically guiding them. And certainly Leo has been doing that up in the Toronto area of Canada. So I'm extremely pleased that we're getting recognized and that there's a whole change in how we educate ourselves. Basically, everyone has to become autodidactic.
Well, I like to turn autodidactic. The post that Eric was talking about was, we had a gentleman who's working on two primary programs for the advancement. One is to get federal recognition for the specialty codes for a systems integrator for a facility. They have facility management, but they don't have what we call building automation specialists. And I'm going to get that post up here in a second. But there's a BEST program. And what that does is it's going into, they're getting monies from organizations and from the government to get deep into our educational system and get kids exposed to STEM technology type things. So we're in the 6th, 7th grade. Instead of waiting until they get into be a high school, and then everybody has an automatic, the momentum is to go into college, university, and so we were discussing that we have HVAC is one of the fastest growing industries in North America, and yet we have a tremendous shortage of people coming into the pipeline. In fact, we got a scary statistic looking at us that 60% of the people presently involved in building automation in HVAC are going to retire by the year 2022. So we'll come back on that real quick. But the other thing that I think you've got going on is your collaboratoriums and your collaborations. I think what you do at these AHR sessions is you bring probably probably the most, advanced cutting edge people in each subject matter. So you have master systems integrators, you have the future of building automation, you have smart environments, and you've done a lot of work with the humanizing the interior of the building automation system, how to get a user interface that really takes advantage of technology, which is getting smarter, faster, with a smaller footprint, and the demand for people to be happier and more productive inside of a facility or a building. So tell us a little bit more about some of these other things you're going to have going on at the HR.
Actually, that's a really good roll in. We've actually got 3 sessions that kind of, it was interesting to put them up there, and I hadn't saw how close they all dovetailed into each other. But when Brad and I were talking as to what session we would talk about what, Brad's been kind of getting his head around as we move to the edge and we start looking at people as the controlled variable. It's interesting, we very quickly get into the psychology of people, and we kind of lose that whole deep dive we had with the building and basically controlling from the middle. So what we need to do is we need to kind of go back and take another look at what these people really want. And a lot of what they really want is they really want to be in control. They want to perceive they're in control. So we have to start building that into our apps. And in some ways, Brad talks a little bit about the older buildings and the fact that his staff loves the older buildings where they can actually open windows, turn lights on and off, and they don't really want to lose that. But the reality of that in the large buildings is not so good. So what we have to do is we have to create a virtualization of that. Anyway, we're going to talk a little bit about that in a session that's titled something like Evolution from Ethernet to Emotion in the building. So that's our first session that Brad and I are going to kind of open up that. I think Therese might join us. She's on the docket there. Then the next one rolls into this open hardware, open software, open minds with the young guns. And then it's followed up by the collaboratory, which is the old sages, basically giving us their take on where they think the industry is going. And I was extremely pleased in our last article on education.
Ken, real quick, because I definitely want to get into education and all that. That's really big. I want to just step back for a second. And be a little contrarian here. And I'm doing this kind of at my own expense because I think when we talk about the putting the younger people in control, that's a really good thing for us because it creates business opportunities. Okay. But here's my question. So what if we don't do that? And, of course, I'm coming from a mindset of dealing with my 5-year-old and 3-year-old this morning, getting ready for the show that they wanted everything. And I just go, no. But what are the ramifications if people just sort of adopt that stance and go, no, we're not going to put people into control of the building?
We're not going to put people in control of the building?
Yeah, I mean, it seems like we're going to this whole thing about, you made a statement, a very telling statement, I thought, which is, the young people that are in the buildings, occupying the space, the young guns, they want to be in control. That's part of the heart of the emotionalization of the building. So I'm just taking a contrarian point of view, sort of at my own expense, because I think that's really a good thing for us. But, what happens if some of these building owners and architects and all go, no, we're not going to give them any more control. We're not going to make the business emotional. What's the ramifications, do you think?
Actually, Brad answered that in one line. He said, you got to give me a motive to get out of my sweatpants and move out of my comfortable chair at home to come into your office. It basically, they have the option. They basically do not, unlike the workforce before, that was their job depended on them showing up at 9 o'clock,
right,
8 o'clock or whatever. That is completely gone. We have the situation that we are chasing these talented people, and we will basically do what these talented people tell us they want to do. It's kind of completely changed. And what they're doing is they're changing that whole attitude. And of course, the big buildings are turning more into hotels and service centers. Yeah. And that whole, my job depends on me showing up to a particular spot, just doesn't happen anymore.
No,
they
agreed.
Basically work on the way, sitting in a coffee shop or a on the bus. They're answering emails and dealing with their job. So their job is where they are. And so you got to make this building mighty attractive. And you've got to make them perceive they're in control, or are they not coming? It's just
right. No, agreed. And I think a short answer to that is that, and Kenny always sort of alluded to it already, that, there's a talent shortage, fewer people chasing more jobs. So to me, one of the short answers is it is also a great recruitment tool. And sort of talking about the sweatpants, we had a dinner party last night and a gentleman came over and he just started with this new company. He's running, these projects and all, and they have, centers around the world. In Atlanta, they have a center that's set up for 400 people. He says they're lucky to have 4 or 5 people in there in any given day. So to your point. So I'm not disagreeing with that. And Brian Lovell was the gentleman we were talking about, Ken.
Sure.
All the great stuff.
I wanted to give that credit, if you don't mind. He was a ControlTalk Now interview 2 weeks ago, September 30th, and it was Brian Lovell, MED, co-principal investigator of National Science Foundation, the best center. And he's got some, I would encourage anybody that missed that interview to go back, because he's got some very exciting news. And he was right at the forefront of another disclosure, but he had to wait until, because it involved organizations with big money. And they're getting ready to come into multiple cities. They're doing a test run down in Atlanta, and it's working really well. And they're going to replicate that throughout the country and some of the other major metropolitan areas. So,
yeah, and well said. And Ken Sinclair, that might be another answer to the question I was going contrarian on, which is if you're trying to recruit younger people into our industry to be master systems integrators and work on that, you better, put them, because they're going to want the same sorts of things. So they're going to want to provide for their clientele what they would want for themselves. So I think you're right on it with it. But again, being an old guy like me and Kenny Smyers, and probably you too, it's like my kids go, I want this. And I'm kind of going, yeah, right. Not going to happen. But it's not necessarily that effective of a strategy in parenting, but probably not in business, because in business, I think you got to figure out what your clients want and give it to them.
Well, my thoughts on that be a major consequence, Ken. If they don't do what you said with Brad and have, appease them, I don't mean appease them, but give them control of what they need to be happy inside of an environment. Give them control and feedback on the temperature, the lighting, for goodness sakes, the amount of air being, brought into the space. If they need more, and so having it, I think, Ken St. Clair, what you've done is you've told us the tools that are available to interact with a building automation system that used to be hidden, and it used to be regarded as a bad thing to give people access to the things that can make them more comfortable. And now we're saying it's imperative. We're saying the sooner you do it, the better off you are, and the more success you're going to have keeping your building occupied.
Right, and I think the other thing too, Kenny, is that if you're still on the fence with this, I think this is the session that Brad White's got going at AHR. So after you get up, after you attend the Control Trends Awards, you take your aspirin or Advil the next morning after your hangover, then I think you go hear Brad White and the young guns, and I think they'll definitely sort of fill you in on where the future of buildings are going to go. But buildings with a heart, I like it.
Okay, the other thing I want to share is Mark Peacock and I had a discussion, and I've thanked him very much, and he was very pleased to be part of that last article with his basic game changer and that table he created of how we used to deal with things, and now we have to rephrase them, and that's like an amazing document. You guys featured that on your last Control Trend, so that was like amazing. But we started talking, and he just says, like, off the record, how's this all going to play out? And we just had that kind of a big discussion between the two of us. And here's my shot from the hip is the majors, and I think the major in my mind that's doing it closest to right is Siemens, and in the fact that they're buying companies like Comfy and J2, and they are actually embracing this edge technology, and they're going to take it out to the mass markets. And who they're going to make this great change is to their large clients, which are somewhat captive. They're large universities, hospitals and stuff, and they will basically trowel these technologies over that. So that's one side of the industry. But the other side of the industry, which I think is the interesting side of the industry, is basically the education movement meeting the maker movement. And the maker movement is these young kids that work with these microprocessors, and they're starting to pull them in. They're heavily vested in open software open hardware and open minds, and they're creating and they're looking to write the next great app. And basically, if they can somehow reach and touch and humanize this connection between people and buildings, the world is their oyster. And even on a smaller scale, they can quickly get these products to market by buying, link spring boxes, or certain devices, or there's a whole myriad of devices that they can mix and match to do the project. And they have this incredible close relationship with the owner, and so they're going to start building these brand new systems that have never been built before. And when they become extremely successful at that, then the big companies will buy them again. So I'm loving the synergy that's going on there.
Okay, the education. We have a guest in the wings. We have Jason Houck, Chief Information Officer, the leader of Hepta Systems, one of the fastest growing master systems integrators in the universe, in the country, in North America. Hi, Jason. But Ken, we got to talk one more thing about this. It's very important, because I think the educator of the year, the education, I think you've come up with another pun that this time I think it was very well received as far as the edge. I mean, we're talking everything edge now. Edge controller. Vicon just came out with the Vicon Edge 10 controller. Genesis had the 534, and in BASSG had an edge controller, and Jason's going to tell us about some of his experiences with the edge controller, because now we're seeing this as this isn't just a fad or trend. This is going to become embedded. We've heard people saying that because the edge controllers are getting so robust, and the form fit's getting smaller and smaller, that the cloud might have been overrated for many, many reasons, because the edge controller now can actually take and process and regurgitate and get the information back into the system quicker, faster, less expensive, etc. So tell us what the whole concept. Give us your 411 on edification and why you had such fun with it. What does it mean?
Well, yeah, I think the big advantage is of course I actually did akin to it to the DDC industry, which I grew up in. What we did is went from physical devices to microprocessors, and now what we're doing is we're moving from almost microprocessors. Some of them had evolved a little bit beyond that, but we're moving into full-blown computers on cards and stuff, basically microcomputers rather than microprocessors, the complete operating systems. And these systems are open, and you can basically mix and match the operating systems, the kind of programs. You can download Sedona, and all of a sudden you've got yourself a formidable DDC controller. So we have this whole new maker baker type of atmosphere, which very much to me looks like the atmosphere I grew up with DDC, where I was able to do things that were never done before. And I think we have exactly the exact same phenomena, can't say that word, phenomena, that we have these young folks that are able to put together amazing products. And the other thing that's happening is we have this tremendous security thing, and what do we do with our data? The edge devices allow us to basically exist on the edge, learn on the edge, and then if we're really concerned about our data, we can actually just purge it, throw it away, because we can collect some more tomorrow, kind of thing. So it's a dynamic thing. We can self-learn from who's in the room. We can do some facial recognition. We can do all of these incredible things at the edge, and we don't necessarily have to put the information that we've gathered at risk by putting it in the cloud. So it's just a simplification, and I think it feels better to the people. I'd rather talk to the device than the issue of talking to my Alexa or my Hey Google. Nobody has the concern of actually talking to the device. They kind of like that relationship. It's mine. I can shut it off. I can do this and do that. Their big concern is that it's pushing information up to the cloud. And if they could basically control that, or they had a better comfort level for that. So I think there's a whole thing going on there. There's another thing going on, which is people want to be device free. And the voice is one of the things that takes us as close to device free, but now machine vision is becoming another piece that's coming in there is if this thing looks at us, it can recognize that it can recognize the light level we're in. It can even judge our mood. We have all of these new tools. And so it's an exciting time for the young folks to make sense of all of this and make devices.
Well, speaking of young folks that make sense of it and get the devices going, I want to introduce our next guest, because I think, is like everything else, you got this great technology and all this stuff can work, but at the end of the day, you still have to have somebody that can put it together. And we're very fortunate with Jason Houck from Hepta Systems, former young gun on Control Trends, and Hepta Systems has been a master systems integrator at the Control Trends Awards, but, probably one of the, if not the top, Sinclair and Kenny, in my opinion, innovative systems integrators, certainly one of the top 2 or 3. So Jason Houck, welcome to Control Talk Now. You're on with Kenny Smyers and Ken Sinclair from Automated Build.
Hey guys, thanks for having me today. Really appreciate it.
Thanks for coming in. You've been listening in a little bit. Any initial comments about the Edge and the Enterprise and all these cool things we're talking about, the kind of general building?
I think we've been on the Edge for a long time. Controllers with smarts was essentially the first Edge controller, and now our controllers with smarts are just becoming smarter and smarter. And being able to push some of your data or all of your data up to the cloud into a data lake, essentially is I think a lot of people's goals, especially in large real estate. But yeah.
I made a statement that I didn't really mean to say that the cloud wasn't critical or whatever, because it certainly is. In fact, it's going to be, we're seeing the big players moving the cloud stuff, the IBMs, the Amazon, the Microsoft, and I just saw the Azure, they're going down to the individual level. You don't even have to be a company anymore. You can be a person, and they'll give you access to. They'll give you their framework to play around with and try it out. So I didn't mean to diminish the fact that, in fact, we will rely on the cloud for everything, all the big stuff. But when we were talking about the zone level controls, when we're talking about room automation, we're talking about total room automation. Right. It has to have and you're probably one of the guys who helped design that. In other words, there's things. It's like an economy of scale. It's like division of labor. You put things where they belong. And right now, the first impulse is throw everything in the cloud, bring it back. And then we discovered bandwidth issues and whatever. Then we had the fog, which was like going part of the way to the cloud and come back. And then we had this total reliance on the edge where, excuse me, we saw, Eric and I had the benefit of reading or watching a very interesting concept with the cars. They're calling the cars edge controllers, or basically moving data, and so the guy's concept was you couldn't take that information to the cloud and back when you're driving cars. It has to be so immediate. It's fractions of a second that these cars are all meshed together and they're sharing information at he called that the edge.
Yeah, and I think the evolution of 5G coming out and into the marketplace is really going to change things. 5G is going to allow sensor to sensor communication and speed, unbelievable. It's going to be a major reliant, like you said, on the self-driving cars, because if your car is communicating with that street light ahead, you can't have the latency of the street light just turned green, and a couple seconds later your car turned red, and then a couple seconds later your car realizes, hey, I just went through the light and it was red. So 5G is supposed to correct a lot of that, with Verizon and AT&T bringing 5G out in cities like New York City and Houston, and doing first runs on that. That's going to really explode the IoT market, I really believe.
So Jason, I want to ask you a question, and and Ken Sinclair to me is, we call him Notre Dame of Sinclair, because I think he sees very, very accurately into the future. And you were listening a little bit when he was talking about, sort of the emotional building and giving people more control and all the great stuff he's talking about that I think is going to come to fruition. In your experience with your clients, because you deal with cutting edge type clients that are really asking for, top line type stuff. What are your clients asking you for right now?
We're seeing exactly that. The occupants requiring more and more control, with Bluetooth thermostats that connect directly to your phone as soon as you walk into the room, and now you have control of the lights, the thermostat, and the blinds and shades, or through occupant experience apps, right? Giving the user full control of their space without calling maintenance or facilities, right? They want to be able to control and be in control and know what's going on. And I think that's becoming more and more, getting the data down to the actual occupants versus, Boiler Room Bob sitting somewhere huddling all of the data all to himself, like the mad scientist that used to control the building, right? It's now getting to the point where it's kind of not required.
Yeah, well, and I want to just, for our audience who might not know a little bit about Hepta, I think it's a good time right now to sort of give them sort of the thumbnail about what you guys do, because part of what you guys do is you guys are writing a lot of custom apps. You guys really have sort of mastered analytics, because analytics and big data has been, or even big data, little data has been a buzzword we've talked a lot about, right? Yeah. But you guys have actually been able to come up with custom programs and things like that where you make the data usable. So speak a bit about what Hepta does, what makes you guys a bit different, and then sort of how you guys are creating that experience using data.
Yeah, so Hepta Systems is a master systems integrator, but really what we come down to is we explain ourselves as more as a technology partner, that trusted technology partner, that if you want to, look at space utilization, different sensor technology like that, that's something you can bounce off of us and work on with other team members, what the use case of that is. How are we going to use that, right? Essentially with some technology like that, you can get right down to space occupancy and controlling your HVAC and lighting down to a very optimized solution. And that is, we just did an integration on a facility, and the BAS integration was probably a quarter of the data points. When you're thinking that we were used to our integration being 100% BAS and metering and stuff like that. And now we just walked into a facility where each light fixture had 5 data points on it. And then we had space utilization devices and blinds and shades and the HVAC was such a small portion of actually making that space work together.
Actually, if I had a point here, we've got a session in Atlanta, and we've upgraded the Master Systems Integrator to Super Systems Integrator. And I think Jason would definitely fall into that category. And I find it extremely interesting that these leading Master Systems Integrators are basically, creating a new frontier. So kudos to you.
Thank you, Ken. Thank you.
Well, very cool. And Ken Cinque, let's talk about it. What do you think makes a super Master Systems Integrator? Because I think it's a great conversation, and I'd love to hear what you're picking up, and then Jason, I'd love to hear. I think as you guys begin to distance yourself even more and sort of take that next level, how you guys are configured. I know you guys do things differently, but Ken Cinque, let's kick back to you a little bit and talk about your take on what you think a super systems integrator is and what would make them different.
Well, I think Jason just did a good job of describing exactly what it is we all started in the industry integrating. We thought that was what we were integrating was our HVAC systems, these control systems, and doing a good job of that. And of course, once you start doing that, again, this edge thing is you start touching the people. Once you start touching the people, this cry for more control, more of a being able to open the window, close the blind, turn on the light, all that becomes part of it. And the next frontier for Jason is video analytics, looking at people's emotions. Basically, Calvin did an amazing article on our site talking about how useful a camera as a sensor is, because we can now see what the light level is. We can do facial recognition. We can there's just a myriad of things we can do, and ironically enough, the camera is a cheap sensor. And so, what's got to be going on in Jason's mind is he's got his nose against a parabolic curve of functionality that is just totally amazing. And I imagine some of his conversations with his clients are maybe we can't do that today, but we'll do it tomorrow. But
I think the interesting conversation. This is a great conversation. I'm glad this is being recorded, because this is the new capture. I think this is the newest iteration of again, the Hepta guys were one of the few first companies to take the lead on what a master systems integrator was. Then we saw the follow-on. We saw several groups of contractors also saying me too, whatever, and it confused the industry a little bit. But what I'm seeing here is this incredible migration towards the IT side of the world, where we're recognizing that building automation isn't first and foremost in a lot of people's minds. It's important, it's critical, make no doubt about it. Operational technology would win in the chicken or the egg guessing game of what's more important, information technology or operational technology. If you shut down something or whatever caused something to happen that's not supposed to happen, that's a lot worse than compromising somebody's information. But the pursuit here is quite clear that you guys are going into the network and into the IT side of the world, and I think that's really where the heavy lifting gets done, because these users, all they want is the data. They don't want the names. They don't want the proprietary stickiness. They just want access to the data. So anybody who can mine that data quickest and easiest using whatever, because you've already mentioned cameras. I read that article, Ken St. Clair, and it was amazing, the technology. The one camera could produce, the thermal imaging. It could do so much. It even provides a security response. It provides occupancy, dwell time. It does it all. But then the lighting fixtures that this Delta Electronics came out with at the lighting fair, and I believe you were in Germany, weren't you? Or one of your colleagues were, because they reported on that too, that they had 6 different sensors in the lighting fixture, and the lighting fixtures give you a whole heck of a lot of more points to play with than just the BAS and building automation. So it would be incumbent upon the master systems integrators to pursue the data inside the building and be the one that can bring it to home base, or bring it to the edge, or bring it to the cloud, and be able to manage data. So it's a very interesting.
I think you're right on, Kenny. I got to hop in and ask Jason the question, because Jason, we get to the practicality of it, because you're dealing with the guys that are writing the checks, and you're the guy who has to go out and buy this stuff. Are we at a price point yet where this is really feasible, or is this just a great idea but nobody's willing to pay for it yet?
I think we're there. Definitely with the capability of I'm going to throw some IoT devices out there that go to the cloud, right? Like there's a sensor called Fubot. It's $199, and it's got VOCs, dust particles, CO2, and temperature and humidity in it. It's $199. It goes to the cloud. You can deploy them quick. You plug them in, connect it to the Wi-Fi, and off it goes, right? There's no BAS contractor that could tell me that they could deploy that many sensors of that caliber that quickly, that cheaply for a customer. So I think we're there. I think you got to open your horizons to these new technologies. Maybe it's something that was kind of meant for residential, but it works well for boardrooms. We just did an integration to 2 cameras, and we're getting about 15 data points off of those camera devices telling us where people are, how many people are in the space, and stuff like that. And it's not a backnet integration. It's not anything. It's an API. So if you don't have people to write those APIs, then I guess you're not doing those integrations.
If I can talk, what this has all done for me is a year ago, I think we were all talking about how IoT integration would change our industry. Recently, it's become perfectly clear to me that we are just simply going to become IoT, and we're going to become a division of IoT, and we're going to become a very valuable division of IoT, because the kinds of things Jason is doing are crossover. As he keeps learning more and more about the new devices that are coming on the market, he's able to integrate them, and the value, one of his most extreme values is his understanding of these edge devices. And these edge devices are just going to keep rolling at us at an incredible pace in the future because of the maker movement, and we've got all these young people working on it. The technology is cheap. They're going to be able to make these devices. Don't be afraid that all of a sudden we had a controller that we used to sell for $600. You can buy 3 controllers that'll actually talk to each other. The problem is the world doesn't know what to do with those. Only Jason knows what to do with those. And so that's why it's coming more and more important. And that's why we're kind of escalating the MSI to a super MSI. And Scott and I have been talking about a lot of directions, and we talked about renaming it, and I think that came up at Realcomm. There's complications. It's not such a bad title, but these guys are definitely taller these days.
Well, I think, Ken and Kenny and Jason, we've all talked in the past about sort of headwinds to this. And, Jason, it's not lost on me that, when I asked to describe your building, the first words out of your mouth is a trusted advisor. So, a question for everybody that's talking today. It seems like, the best opportunity with this is retrofit, right? Because at least in the U.S., Kenny, Otto, you can speak to Canada. It still goes through, the architect, the consulting engineer, and typically they're thinking low price, lowest installed cost. They're not necessarily thinking, some people are, but they're not necessarily thinking, how the building's going to be used or whatever. But so I guess for all you guys, how do we get that to change? Because there's still that big pushback, at least in the U.S., where, hey, we want low cost for installation. It's encouraging because we're seeing guys like Donnie Walker and some of the engineering, like from Houck and Boyd, that are really starting to embrace the new technology and to incorporate that. But I think he still gets the pushback from, well, we want the lowest cost. But what do you guys see the headwinds, and how do we overcome them?
Well, I have an answer real quick, because it came up last week about exclusivity. And how that was the big, that was the channel when you were trying to create a channel to service, vendor to market. How do you get it there? You created a channel, 1 step, 2 steps, 1.5, or whatever. But you had to have some sort of intermediaries. And what we saw was disintermediation. People were taking those channel players out of it and going direct to the people. So the exclusivity became whoever is like Jason Houck and creates the first step and does first tech deployment using what Ken St Clair just said about the latest and greatest technology that reduces footprints and pricing and is funner and easier to use. You just have to be clever enough to create an APA like Jason says. So I'm going back and forth on this to say that creates the exclusivity that everybody wants. By being the technology leader, you create your own pace that other people have to keep up with. That pace becomes exclusive because not many people can do it.
Well, but does that mean you're bypassing the architect and the consulting engineer and going straight to the owner and pitching the owner?
Combination, all the above. If you could go through the long play, it's like trying to sell, security enterprise systems. It's a 1.5 year cycle. I mean, you start on January 1st, 2018. You won't see an order, and I think till about May 2019 will be the first ice flow. It'll break, like a thaw. But if you're out there knocking on doors, attending these major symposiums and these collections of intelligent people that bring building owners, enlightened engineers, and fast-running contractors and distributors, because you mentioned Scott Cochran that came out already, and Brian Turner. So you're seeing a group of people leaving the pack, let's say. I mean, for a rough, analogy. And we're following them. I mean, if you're in the business and you're not paying attention to these North Stars that are moving, repositioning in the sky, you're in trouble, because it's happening at lightning speed. It's the thing here that scares me the most is how fast it goes. The conversation we had last year at this time, where we were like hitting on these topics, it's already here. Like Jason just said, it's already here. And
Okay.
And then, so Eric, what's your thoughts?
No. I think you're right on it, but I definitely want to stay back to get Ken Sinclair and Jason sort of answer the original. What do you guys see the biggest headwinds, and how do we get past it?
It is educating the owners, right? They're the ones that are going to have to push back on the engineering and the architects and say, okay, we want to do this POE lighting. Stop pushing back and telling me that, it doesn't make sense and stuff like this. We've got a design firm that is pushing POE lighting, and they're the smart building firm that's pushing it, and the owner wants it and they want all of it. And the electrical engineer just says, nope, I don't know how to design it, so we're not doing it. And so it's a real pushback that, this new tech is here, but I don't know if we're up to speed at the design firms. Like you did mention Donnie Walker. Those guys are great. They embrace technology. He's a great asset to reach out and say, hey, we're looking for something to do this, and he'll give you 5 different systems and 5 different technologies to be able to do it. And then it gets down to the construction companies, right? We responded to an MSI bid, and we explained our qualifications and our capabilities of integration, and we were thrown out of the bid because we didn't provide our safety policy. That's about a couple hundred pages within the bid, and we said available upon request. So it's getting those guys to, hey, this is more than just drywall and putting up studs and putting windows in a building. This is the technology that the users are going to use at the end of the day to touch and feel their facility. You know, it's not paint and it's not drywall. You know, this is technology that's going to bring the glue of this facility together. And I think that's really missing in the market.
I think you're right on it with it. And that kind of, Otto, I want to get your take on this, but I think that, you know, and Kenny, I've talked a lot about, you know, people on the distributor side, you know, we see a lot of them go, they're just dead people walking. They don't even know they're getting ready to be trounced and run over. So when you hear when you hear something go, well, you know, we don't know how to design that, so we're not going to do it. I think the opportunity to do that is probably not going to be too long. You know, I'd be surprised that electrical engineer designer is either going to figure out how to do it, or he's not going to be getting many bids in the future.
I can tell you what they did. They went out and found another one.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. Otto, I mean, you've been preaching this for a while. And I mean, I think a lot of what you do with your publication, automatedbuildings.com, which is a great source, and also with all the teaching and all the panels you do, is really sort of geared to this. So what's your take on this?
Well, my take on it is that the automotive industry has announced they are now a software industry. I think it's about time for the building industry to announce that they are a software industry. And it's just that kind of radical change. And what's happening is the chief technical officer is now working with the CEO of these companies. They're trying to make change. Generally, what I see is of traditional consultants and traditional architects is they're caustic. They're basically are against anything the change that is occurring. And I think what you're going to see is this opens a giant hole in the system for these young entrepreneur super system integrators, and also the people more than ever are willing to try stuff they've never tried before, because they are seeing some of the success stories of the of great integrations, and so they're willing to give them a floor of their building to test out some idea, whether it's cameras. And so all of a sudden that's going to grow, and that creates a relationship, this trust that between the maker, this new maker shaker, and that understands our industry. So it's just incredible potential for us all. And then the folks that want to have their trusted advisors lead them through that, we're seeing companies leading like Siemens, who's taking up these new concepts and starting to blend them into their offering, and are basically providing probably a less risk-free transition. But I'm finding that people are, because they're looking at it like the software industry, not the building industry, I think there is a new movement to move towards it.
Right. I think you're right, Ken. And I think the other thing along with that is I think it gets back to what we were originally talking about. I think that the real estate business is very competitive, probably more competitive than it ever has been because people would just prefer to stay home and work in their sweatpants. But with recruiting people, your space has got to be a differentiator in the recruitment and in the retainment of people. So I think it starts with that. And then I think everybody's got to wake up and down the chain, right?
But also, you're talking about the crystal ball. Like Ken, you know, we do value your ability to look at things and kind of call them, because you've been very accurate here. But imagine being an architect and engineer in defense of them too, and you're looking at Los Angeles, where we've got Elon Musk making comments about the number of automated autonomous vehicles going to put truck drivers, you know, on their haunches somewhere, find a new place. You know, and we know retail people, 3.2 million, are going to get displaced here by the Amazon fulfillment center people, but how do you build a building where today you have parking in it, but you know 5 years from now you're not going to need that parking space? So you've got to design this thing so that can be reclaimed and reutilized as an office building. You know, I mean, so there are some challenges. I mean, this technology, this disruption is a giant puzzle where all the pieces are like floating around and they're coming together, but then, you know, something comes in and causes all of those initially fitting pieces to be reconfigured or need to be reconfigured. So it's a real tricky.
Well, it is, but not necessarily on the building automation side. I think the building automation side is low-hanging fruit. I mean, you know, right?
Well,
I mean,
because yeah, I mean, I agree with that, but I mean, but there's so many automation companies that are so good. I mean, like you always say, and I believe it. You know, it's not everybody's got a great product. I mean, if you go to the majors, as we referred to them initially. And then you take some of these minor players that are just growing, leaps and bounds because the market's underserved. 80% of the buildings still don't have competent BAS or anything more than the thermostat installed. The government's begging everybody to wake up and get with the program. Somebody take the initiative at every level and get us some efficiency so that we get the smart grid really work and make it,
Right.
applicable for all our great grandiose ideas. But
But you lead me to my next question, Kenny. I mean, you really do. It's a great question. My question for Jason specifically, and also you, Ken Sinclair, because we've seen other players come in from, like, we call it Silicon Valley, right? My question for you guys, specifically Jason, is do you think the traditional players in our industry that have been around for a long time, and there are a bunch of them, are keeping up, or you think they're falling behind in terms of products?
I think they are keeping up. You're seeing some partnerships with Intel and stuff like that. But like Ken Sinclair mentioned, right? These guys have to realize that, it's about the software. If someone came out and say Intel came out and made a VAV box that you could install anybody's brand software on, right? Now, Eric, you're carrying one box on the shelf and you throw a label on it on whatever the end user wants to install. It's an actuator with some inputs and outputs, right? It's making the software work on that device. We don't need to have 10 different brands of VAV. They all do the same thing. It might be what software you like to load on it and which one you prefer. But it worries me because people aren't, they're not necessarily going to be brand loyal anymore, right? And that worries, probably worries you, right? Because now if someone comes out with that cool Bluetooth device,
they are going to be trusted advisor loyal.
Yes.
And that's why you're going to succeed, because they're going to trust you. I don't give a crap what kind of hardware you use. I want you to do your magic, work your magic.
And I totally agree with that, right? Like, not ever do we walk in and say, oh, you have to install red or blue or whatever. We say, you need to install a VAV style box controller that's going to give us the style of data points, right? That's what we're looking for. And
I'm scared too, by the way. If anybody was saying, because you mentioned Eric, because it's true. I mean, we're seeing the T's moving all over the board, but it's a good thing. It can't stop it, because every time a door closes, one opens. And I think to Ken St. Clair's point, it's time to readjust your professional calibrations and certifications and get re-involved, because if you already do have the trust, you've already earned your stripes with customers for many years, and you're a service company that's out there that's just been, your recognition, your brand it's all over the cities and metropolitan areas, and now it's time to make a move. It's time to make the move. It's not time to get abrasive or caustic. It's time to say, okay, let's go to some of these new seminars or webinars, and let's get this new technology and see how we can make it work for us.
Yeah, the other point that Jason brought up about some of these new edge sensors is, if you're sitting there shaking your head and saying, this is going to be the end of our industry, you're absolutely right. It's going to be the end of your industry. But if you told like Jason and you dig this thing out and you order one and you play with it and you say, wow, this is kind of a neat device. How can I utilize it in my trusted advisor role? And that's what we are. We're all turning into the value we have as an industry is we are trusted advisors. We basically know that we can break that big chiller. We know we can collapse the building by too much pressure, not enough pressure. We know all of these things that we learned painfully over the last 100 years. And but we need to retrofit ourselves. We need to become the IT industry for buildings. That's who we are.
Yeah.
We're not building controls folks that are using IoT. We are the IoT division of buildings. And so we got to start thinking that thought, I think. And I've attempted to, in my writings, I'm less writing for our industry and more writing for the IoT industry. And I'm starting to get some movement there. And there's folks like getting great support from Unified Box out of Singapore, and they basically have a product that basically starts texting devices. Like, why wouldn't I text the window to open or text the temperature to 72, and also to convert those dialogues to voice, and also then I have an actual personal record. Did I really tell it to go to 80 degrees? Oh, I really did. There's a record. So basically that full integration of what's available with IoT today into what we're doing today is our goal.
It makes a lot of sense. And for our distributor customers out there that are putting the guns to their head, or listeners, I should say, going, what am I going to do? Because, you look at Jason and I'll tell you, I think it's kind of strange because it gets back to, at the end of the day, somebody's got to have a relationship with and walk a guy like Jason to the door and say, this is a guy you need to talk to. And I know, Jason, we do some business, and it's a little bit different because our approach with you was, I know, Scott Cochran's your guy, right? I mean, you deal with Scott up there locally, but you guys are a global footprint now. So when we first met, sort of the deal we struck is, hey, any leads that we bring you or help you get, because your cost to sell is definitely one of the most expensive costs for all of us. So, we bring you into a job, introduce you to some people, you create that trusted advisor, you create that thing, and you turn around and buy the product from us. That's sort of how we work together, right? So for distributors, if you think about it, you got to rethink your value proposition, because again, if you're a local distributor, the one thing you have that most people don't is you've got local relationships, you have access. And I think, Kenny will tell you, Jason will tell you, I mean, if you're out there, if you don't know somebody right now, it is very difficult to get access. So you have access to bank on. And speaking of banking, I mean, I could see distributors becoming your financial center. I mean, where we're providing, we do it already, where we're getting creative ways to provide credit. Because again, doesn't matter how smart you are, one of the realities of business is you still have to deal with the money flow, right? So I guess what I'm saying, I don't have the answers yet, but I'm saying as a distributor, to create value, you have to rethink what you're providing, because just having a warehouse full of products isn't enough. You got to have that, but it's not enough, because guess what? Amazon or somebody can get it to you in a day or two. But what Amazon can't do is they can't walk Jason Houck or Ted Houck or somebody into a building and say, I want you to meet John. We play golf together. John, you should talk to Jason.
Yeah, it's great relationships, right? And it's the trust. Like, Eric, you've been in the industry for how long? And you have a lot of trusted people that trust what Eric Stromquist says.
Right.
And when that's you walk into a meeting and it says, work with these guys, I trust what they do. You're putting your 30-year relationship on the line that we'll deliver. And
I think as supply companies, distributors and stuff too, and Scott, I think Scott Cochran has certainly gone in this direction as well, is you're going to get less in the supply business and more into the engineering business. You're going to be a trusted advisor that I go to because you know what's happening in the industry. If you see the change and you can make the products to the point that I'll pay you so much an hour, or pay your people so much an hour to tell me which products to use. And then there's still all that deep learning that you have as part of Control Trends. All those videos you made about how to connect a FireEye and all that stuff doesn't go away. All that crap, you still have to know all that crap. And then you got to learn all this new IT stuff. It's like for a kid coming in to try and catch up with what it is we're doing, it's painful. Let me know. Yeah. But we have to change. We have to acknowledge these new products. We have to acknowledge the shift that the distribution isn't maybe the most important thing you guys do. The most important thing you do is create trusted relationships.
Right. Well, Kenny, what was the guy's name, the other integrator out of Oklahoma City? Oh, I can see his face and I can't remember his name, but
Automated Integrated.
Yeah, automated integrated. And he coined a phrase, we're in the integrity economy. And I think there's a lot to that, because I think the other thing you have to rethink is you have to rethink how your relationships work. Because, one day Jason might be buying stuff from me, another day I might be buying something from Jason. And I think at the end of the day, your communications have to be very, very clear. And Ken Sinclair, you mentioned a very interesting thing about, well, maybe a distributor needs to provide like engineered services and stuff like that. And that's a dicey road. I mean, at Stromquist, we're very much aware of the fact that guys like, Stephen Johnson, our friends at McKinney's, guys like Jason, they've invested a ton of money in engineering and stuff like that. They don't necessarily need us setting up competitors to them. So, I think one of the things we're focused on as a distributor is not competing with the people that have that already, but trying to get them in front of people, customers, and then also, to your point, being the funnel, being the educator, with all the technologies coming out, if we can be somebody that Jason can call up and go, hey, I'm looking for, a great wireless sensor to do this, this, and this. And I can say, Jason, you got this choice, this choice, this choice. Or, same thing with building automation controls. It used to be you'd have one brand and that was it. I think if you have one brand now of automation controls, you're probably dead in the water because, you got to be fluent in all the different brands, the pros and cons of all of them. So it's a tricky place to be a distributor.
It was automation integrated. I'm sorry, but and then I just want to throw in again for the way the seesaw goes. Like we're all saying these dooms, and Ken St Clair was always the guy who would rebound back and say it's not magic. Somebody still has to do the actual integration, lifting, wiring, whatever, and so it doesn't happen overnight. And then I always think of Mr. Oswald when he would hear all these great things about technology, and he would say, "You know what? Fix the fan belts first. Take care of the bearings. If the equipment doesn't work, then all these great things we're talking about, all these super duper applications or whatever." So I think to ground these things and keep us on the ground is that it's not going to happen like overnight, like witchcraft or something or sorcery. It's moving though, and I think though that the technology and the speed is really now you can feel it. It's like a wind.
Okay, the other point I want to make is that the service you guys have provided for years is incredibly valuable. The biggest thing you've offered as trusted advisors and trusted suppliers is products that work. And when they didn't work, you basically outlined them and fixed them and said, here's a replacement product, here's a solution. So you're in this hardware solutions business. This is even getting way more complicated now because we got all these little airy-fairy edge devices invented yesterday. And when one of them hits your organization and you play with it and the contacts fall off of it, that's good to know. So that's good value that you provide. And if you can basically say, okay, we endorse, if you can take your trusted advice and attach it to one of these new amazing products, and you say, yeah, it looks bulletproof. It looks like you can use it. It doesn't use BACnet. It uses, this protocol. It basically is written on Amazon services. If you're going that direction, this looks like a product that we will endorse. And I think there's added value because most of these companies have not even thought about that yet. They've created these products, and it's like, how are you going to maintain it? How are you going to get replacement items out when it breaks? How are you? And Jason needs that. He needs a trusted source of this stuff that he can get. So I think you're going to evolve tremendously in that area.
The beautiful thing, Ken, is the price point has come down so far that you don't fix it. You replace it.
Away.
You throw it away.
So much for technical.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's a good point.
No troubleshooting. $150 device. You spend more than 10 minutes on it. You might as well put a new one in.
Yeah, good point. Okay. But okay. But is supply a problem getting these things, or because that's what seems to be is that they jump up and there's this amazing device, and then you bid a project on it, and then you go to get them, and you want 1,000 of them, and you can't find them anywhere.
I would totally agree with that. And some of these projects you're bidding now that they're coming out of the ground, and you're gonna be integrating technology 3 years from now.
Maybe we'll pay Stromquist to store them for us. So what we'll do is order 1,000 of them and put them in stock, and then take them back out again when we need them.
But you kind of laugh at that, but that really is a value add that as distributors we have to get better at, right? Because you are betting on the technology. Jason, Ken, and Kenny, it's like 3 years from now. I think the point you're trying to make, Jason, is it might not be valid technology 3 years from now. I mean that's the trick.
Yeah. Might be a better one and half the cost, but then again, maybe not.
Yeah.
Well, guys, this is just awesome conversation. Any topics anybody else wants to bring up? I mean, I'm loving the talk here.
Well, I think we broke a couple eggs here today, and the fun part about this is it's learning. I mean, just hearing hearing Jason share again a very new project where he had new instances of where technology was landing inside of a building is incredible. I think Ken, you did a great job again with that October edition because the having the ability to bring those additional editorials or those articles in support of your editorials is incredible too. And then the technology, again, you mentioned like that, the camera, I would recommend to anybody that's really serious about the industry to visit Automated Buildings. I believe it was your September edition where that camera article was in, but there's always great content in there. I mean, it's truly what's happening at the very forefront of our industry. So it's becoming increasingly valuable. And we can also, DMS Controls Group in Pittsburgh can help out.
Oh yeah, definitely.
The event that Stromquist doesn't do it. So,
Yeah.
but because we are actively involved with Hepta and Jason too. And I tell you, it is what's happening. I hate to go too far on the bandwagon because it makes everybody upset and nervous, but I see the Master Systems Integrator and now the Super Master Systems Integrator until the new word comes out, a new catchphrase or the new name is really a solution that we're all going to use. I mean, let's face it, the branches used to be the colossal power, and you had 4 or 5 of them in each major metropolitan area, and everybody depended on them. And it was basically mercantilism. The pie was this big, and they got their shares. They each had a division. There was a red, blue, white, green, whatever piece, and it didn't grow. Now we're seeing this mercantilism model blow away in the wind, and we're seeing this collaboration, you know, in the cooperative model. We're seeing co-opetition is basically what, and the market is so gigantic, so ginormous that everybody can be a winner here if they just really got on board with the concept. But for the big jobs that many contractors and distributors walked away from before, your only recourse is to get a Master Systems Integrator involved, like Hepta, because they can, instead of walking away from it saying we can't do it, we can't integrate this, we don't know networks well enough, we've done this, this, and this. Now you have an opportunity to revisit that business opportunity, that customer, that much market municipality, university, school, or hospital player with a real competent, trusted friend, and use, like Ken St Clair, use that trusted advisor relationship and stay in the game, stay involved, stay business intact, you know.
And I think one of the best things you can do from that aspect is, as an MSI, you take all of Kenny, all of your team, right? You might have 10 different system integrators out there that do a single brand of control. If it's a large project, you know, 10 different sites, we can optimize and use all 10 of those guys. And then as the MSI, bring all that technology together versus, you know, the branches or somebody like that saying, wow, the only people that can handle that is X because we have a big enough workforce. Right.
And see, that's a misconception too, because we've seen, and I don't want to belabor it, but the branches have a failure point too. The branches are sometimes our best customers is the ex-branch job or the branch job that's on fire, but the people loved the controllers. They loved it, but they couldn't get the new technology because they were force-fed old technology because it's our brand. This is what we're doing. And to Ken St. Clair's point, if you don't have somebody, in other words, a branch has a rough time being that trusted advisor because they have no objectivity. They have brand X, and this is like every time they see a square hole, here comes the round peg because they can't change it. They don't have any. They can't make unilateral decisions to pick up another control line or another product or that sensor you're talking about. They've got to stay pretty much in terms. So when you see somebody like Siemens or somebody, you know, with Honeywell and Johnson, I think they're all evolving. And I think you said that, Jason, and I applaud that point that they're getting with it, but they're in a corporate fix. You know, they're bound by 30 days and 90 days and a year to get something done where these mobile corporations can do in 6 months or, you know, 3 months or 9 months, and it works, you know.
Okay, I'm really pleased. We've been a great supporter of the MSIs, and Scott has provided us an interview, I think, for every month for the last year, introducing one of his new MSIs, and that's been great. And Scott, of course, is speaking with me in my opening session at AHR Expo in Atlanta. But in addition to that, he's graciously invited me to his event, ControlCon, in Detroit in May, and I suspect Jason will probably be a part of that. Is that correct, Jason?
Yeah, we'll definitely be there.
You invite us.
Not yet.
God, how you guys got an invitation and we didn't?
Well, I haven't got
I'm
my
gonna be a petty distributor now. Scott, you didn't invite us to your event? Jeez. Gosh. Hey, well, listen, ControlTalk is going to be great. We went last year. It's fantastic. But Jason, I did want to cycle back around and see if you are prepared. I know you guys have been really working. I know you guys do a lot of custom software, data analytics, put together those packages for customers. And I know you've been working specifically on some data center packages. How are you coming with that? Is that something you're prepared to talk about today?
Yeah, with our EntroSim line, we've got a couple new value-added resellers signed up. CEC Controls out of Houston, as well, or sorry, Dallas, and then Parallel Technologies out of the Minnesota area that are going to be pushing the product line, and really excited to have them on board with the data center DCIM product, as well as our EntroSim AI, which brings the analytics. So if you have those broken belts and bearings need replaced, the analytics will tell us so that you can get those fixed.
Right. What makes yours unique, Jason? I mean, because they're using stuff now. What makes yours guys unique?
Yeah. So really, what we did with the package is rather than taking an out of the box piece of software that you have to build up all your rule sets and stuff like that, we're enabling our VARs to basically have the 200 rules out of the box that they can just apply. By utilizing the tagging and all the reporting that's been built, and really go into replication. So rather than them having to develop these tool sets, they can hit the ground running with it.
Very, very cool. Jason, how do people get hold of you guys?
Shoot us an email, reach out on LinkedIn, search LinkedIn at Jason Houck, Hepta Systems, or IoT Wares.
Yeah, heptasystems.com.
Yes, sir.
Okay, and listen, unless you've been under a rock, if you want to be the smartest guy in the room, you need to go at least once a month to automatedbuildings.com and catch up, because Kenny and I really don't know anything. We attest all our knowledge to reading Ken Sinclair's automatedbuildings.com. So, guys, thank you so much for taking time to do this. This has been a fantastic conversation. Hope we can do it again maybe in a month or so. Jason, you're going to be in Atlanta, right, at AHR and all that good stuff?
Yep, going to be in Atlanta at AHR.
The Control Trends Awards.
That's right. Probably coming your way in a couple weeks here too.
Yeah, very, very good. And Ken Sinclair, you're definitely going to be there. So great events coming at AHR that Ken Sinclair is going to be hosting. So guys, can't tell you how much we appreciate you tuning in and being on the show. All right, man, Kenny, great stuff with Jason and Ken Sinclair, man.
Sure was.
We could talk to those guys all day. I love those kind of conversations. So again, thank you so much to those guys for coming on.
It was amazing. I'll tell you again. That's why it's so fun to do this. Because it's a learning process. It's fun to see what you know about stuff, and it's fun to hear where other people are taking it to the next level. To see Ken St. Clair so mobile, traveling from Italy, coming back, puts his head right back to work, and gets and generate such an incredible product at automatedbuilding.com, the website, the editorials. I mean, just how much time and energy he spends. It's a great resource for our industry.
Well, no, it is a great resource. And I tell you what, that's my kind of interview right there, where we it's just like, part of the thing about having guests on is, we want to have, industry related stuff that's interesting, but I love the conversational style. It's like you're sitting in a bar and listening to four controls guys talk about controls. And speaking of that, there is a link on the Control Trends website. If you want to be a guest, click on that link. We'd love to have you. If you're in the industry, Kenny and I are always looking for guests. So we'd love to have you on.
Yeah, and it's right up on the right-hand side of the Control Trends. When you come onto the website, it says Control Talk Now. Be a guest. It's super. Please, we're looking for it, especially now during the great surge towards the Control Trends Awards. I mean, it's just fun to hear people, and you don't have to be an executive. Just have something to say about the industry.
Right. No, agreed, Kenny. I think the thing about it is it's not enough to go out and try to find customers. You have to be easily found. And we know from our guests that many of them have gotten just incredible leads from coming on the show. So I encourage you to do that. All right, buddy, anything else before we hop off?
No, just kind of a gee whiz thing. October Cybersecurity Month. We did put a post up there where California governor signs bills aimed at strengthening the security of IoT devices. And I'll tell you what, it is a very interesting. I would highly recommend for the Control Trends folks that we have the links on there to the actual bills. But I mean, basically, in an effort to keep the Control Trends community in the loop during Cybersecurity Month, here's an interesting update on how IoT devices, including microwaves, toys, thermostats, and security cameras, are to be securitized. Of particular interest was his friend Kayla Smart Doll, which became a prime target for cyber hackers. I'm not going to tell you more. Go visit the article on Control Trends, and then you can drill down into that really deep. But I was shocked. I thought I knew, some of the horrors of the wars.
So you're saying with Christmas coming up, I mean, you got to be careful about the
bingo,
the toys you get your kids.
Bingo.
Very, very, very
well, see,
cool.
they're saying that these microwaves now are armed and dangerous now too, because they're internet ready, and they tell the diagnostics to get sent through your whatever your Wi-Fi setup in your house, and you didn't ask that microwave to begin communicating. You never told the refrigerator to report that you have no milk. I mean, so what's happening is there's an assumption that you want your information to be processed, and now we need some regulations that say you can't do that unless I say it's okay. Please don't do it.
That makes sense, but you're not saying somebody might hack your microwave and then turn it on and just melt your kitchen or anything like that.
Well, you know that they did that with the what was that one show where they advanced the guy had a pacemaker, and the pacemakers were accessible through the internet, and the bad guys,
like assassins were using it. So
and they caused the VIP to have go into heart trauma and died.
Right.
Well, that's based off a true story.
Well, interesting. Well, that's exactly why I got rid of my Tesla. So anybody out there is thinking about hacking my Tesla, I don't have it anymore. Sorry. All right, Kenny Smyers. Special thanks to our guests this week, Ken Sinclair from AutomatedBuildings.com and Jason Houck from Hepta Systems. Another great week on Control Talk. Now, remember, be bold, be in control, and be well.
Indeed, Eric.